This podcast, we talk a lot about the science of mattering, or what Jeff Cohen would say is the science of belonging. But it really comes down to being seen, valued, significant. How do you feel that plays out in healthy versus unhealthy romantic dynamics?
I think people really get a lot of meaning out of their close relationships and out of their closest relationships. I would not surprise me if it is the single most significant source of meaning that people are deriving. The extent to which that works depends a lot on the sort of relationship that two people co-create together over
Yes.
time. It's one thing to really find somebody initially appealing and find yourself falling for them and you're learning all these things about them. But what ultimately happens is, regardless of what happens to the initial passion, you create eventually patterns of interacting, ways of making it through your daily life, a little culture that's all your own, that sometimes we call these microcultures. Movies are often very good at depicting that because sometimes those are really the specifics that give each relationship a life of its own.
Hmm.
And these specifics, these patterns, these little cultures that people create are very commonly the source of meaning and significance and fulfilling that need to belong when they go well. And in relationships that aren't going well, it's often because those patterns, those microcultures, those little things that they've created along the way have created something actually quite toxic, something quite distance creating, something that makes you feel extremely lonely because the relationship has been constructed in a way that isn't fulfilling those needs. So it's a useful way of thinking about the importance that relationships have in our lives. But we also have to recognize that the fact that we get to build these things on our own from scratch means, like, you can build something that works really well and you can build something that works absolutely terribly.
And Eli, I wanted to ask you a follow on to this. If someone feels invisible or underappreciated in a relationship, what does the science suggest about how that affects long term stability in the relationship?
It's interesting. One of the episodes we did more recently is sort of a more art house film. We both loved it, called Marriage Story. It's a Noah Baumbach movie starring Adam Driver, the guy who played Kylo Ren in the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, and then Scarlett Johansson. And what we see in that movie is like a marriage that's actually pretty good, but it falters because he doesn't quite see her enough. He thinks everything's good, things are fine, his career is going well, she's supportive of his career, her career is also going well, but there's some part of herself, some like authentically important aspect of who she is that he doesn't really see or recognize. And what's interesting is that movie is basically a movie about a divorce. Right from the beginning, we know this, that's not a spoiler. And she says early when she's talking to her divorce lawyer that she had this opportunity. She's an actor. She was offered this pilot. Her Adam Driver character is condescending about television, and she says to her divorce lawyer right at the beginning that if he had just taken her into his arms and gave her a hug and said, "I want you to have this part of terrain that's yours," then we probably wouldn't be getting divorced right now. And it's a glib, easy thing to say to your divorce lawyer. All of us can come up with grievances in our own relationships or marriage and point to this thing that if our partner had only done this, it would have been better. But I think she was right. I think that Noah Baumbach, who wrote and directed the movie, is sympathetic with her point of view. And I do think that what happened in that movie is he didn't see her enough. He didn't appreciate her needs and goals and aspirations. And so when she had an opportunity and he could have supported her, he missed it. And in our field, sometimes we talk about this as capitalization. Sometimes we talk about this as secure base or relationship catalyst sorts of support. But he missed the opportunity to see her, to promote her, to cultivate her personal well being. And that harmed the relationship in a big way.
And just to connect this to the earlier point, and I think Eli and I even have cut different reads on what's happening in this movie,
Yeah.
but I think that yes, he failed to appreciate her, but it's not because he's like a bad dude, and
Yeah.
it's not because he messed up one time.
Mm.
Right, in that one moment, I understand that's what the character says, but at least my interpretation of what actually has happened is that they built a structure for a relationship that did not permit opportunities for her to have her
Hmm.
own ambitions. And when she did, she felt she had to keep them to herself.
Hmm.
There were no openings for them to move beyond the structure that they had built for their lives that was about his vision, his ambitions. Hers had been sidelined for about 10 years. And that's what I mean by, like, you create patterns. It's a pattern that is set up that does not give her an opportunity to pursue her own things. And so what does Adam Driver do in that situation? He's totally failed to appreciate all he has to offer because their relationship has effectively shut out that component of who she is.